Now, in order to be able to accurately adjust the lengths of all the samples, you need to understand envelopes. So let's start with our sub sample, as that is the longest sample out of the three. We can see here that the actual full length of the sample is about over here 1 second. So that's about where it ends, and that would be 1 second overall. Now I know the actual waveform is longer, but it seems to die out from about here. Now we could adjust the length by dragging the end points and the start points, as well as creating a fade out and a fade in. And that's, easy enough to comprehend, but when it gets complicated is when you need to use an envelope. An envelope allows for more complex volume curves to be created. Now let me explain how an envelope works. The attack determines how long it takes for the sound to go from 0 to maximum volume. So if the attack is at 0, that means that it's instant. The volume reaches 100% immediately. I'm going to press play, and I want you to listen to how it just starts playing from the get-go without any fade in whatsoever. As I raise the attack, you'll see the sound soften. Because what I'm basically doing is this, creating a fade in with the attack. I'm also going to load a synthesizer which visually gives you a good representation of what that actually looks like. So here is an envelope, attack, decay. That's what the attack does. It increases the amount of time it takes for, in our case, the volume to reach 100% from 0. Now back to the drum sampler. So we want the attack to be a little bit high in order for there to be a bit of a fade in on our sub kick. The reason we want to do this is because we want to bypass the transient in order to leave that space clear for our actual transient kick. So we've softened the transient of the sub by putting the attack up to 22.9 milliseconds. Listen to the difference with the attack at 0 and the attack up to about 20 milliseconds. Bit more of a transient here. A little bit softer here. In fact, I think we can go a little bit higher. Okay. Now, if we wanted to reduce the length of the kick, again, we can bring back the actual endpoint, and that would reduce the length, but we can also use the envelope. Now, with the sustain and the release at 0, the decay will determine how long the sample will last. But in order for this to work, we need to extend the note length, because if the note length is very short, then the sample will only last for as long as the MIDI notes last for. So have a listen now. Right now they're very short. We're getting almost no kick. Once I extend it, the kick is back. And now the decay determines how long that kick lasts. So let's say we want our sub kick to last about this long. Use your ears, regardless of what the milliseconds say here. You need to use your ears when it comes to layering samples and getting a really good result. Let's add the second kick in. Now what we want to do with this again is shorten the length. So I'm just going to solo it. And again, we're going to use the classic type of envelope. Reduce the sustain, reduce the release, and shorten the sample a little bit. Let's say we wanted a thicker kick, then we could increase the decay, or we could use this type of sampler where we can simply bring the end tail back, add a little bit of a fade out, and just have it sustained at full volume consistently throughout the whole sample, like this. Now finally, on the click, this is already a very short sample, so I don't really feel like I need to do much. I will add a tiny bit of a fade out to prevent any clicking from occurring at the end of that sample. Okay, now also back to the classic, back to the sub kick using the classic envelope. I want to show you one more thing. Now the decay is usually a linear decay like this. So what does this mean? It means once the volume reaches maximum level, the decay determines how long it takes to go from maximum level to 0. More accurately, it determines how long it takes to get from maximum level to the sustain level. So with the sustain being all the way down, it would get down to 0. This means that if we wanted the kick around this point to sustain at full volume, it wouldn't. It would simply reach the top at the end of the attack stage. So that would be around 40 milliseconds, around, say around here. And then it would immediately begin to decay, which would reduce the impact of our sub kick, because that sustained low frequency would substantially be reduced in volume very quickly. So what we probably want to do here is go back to the one shot envelope, and then we use the end point to determine how long the actual kick lasts. Because see, the difference with this is that even if we add a fade in, which would be equivalent to the attack, it fades the sound up from 0, just like the attack does on a classic envelope, but then it holds the level there. And once it reaches the fade out point, it begins fading out the sound. So we want the sample to last about, let's say 400 milliseconds, and we want it to fade out from around 300. And that's the difference right there. We could get it to last even less. If we're doing more of a funk house track, it would probably be a slightly shorter kick. Okay, fantastic. So take the samples that you've already chosen from the previous 2 videos, check their phase, filter them, and then finally get each one to have its own space in terms of time. So the sub kick is our longest kick because we want the sub to be the last thing that people hear from the kick drum. The mid-range kick is our second longest kick, and it produces all of the mid harmonics, and you can see here it lasts just about 150 milliseconds. And the clicky kick is our shortest kick. It lasts a very short amount of time, and it's just a transient in order to let the kick punch through all the other elements we're going to have in our project. Now, keep in mind that if you're listening to your track in small speakers such as laptop speakers or phone speakers or small headphones, then you need that click sample in order to hear the kick, because you're not going to be getting much of a bass response from those speaker systems. So even if you don't feel you need it, it's very important you add a click layer. This doesn't necessarily have to be an actual click like this. It could be a hi-hat. It could be anything you want it to be, as long as it's short, very transient, and contains a lot of high frequency content. It could even be a short white noise sample. Now in the next video, we're going to EQ all of these a little bit further, as well as check the tuning of all of these samples in order to make them fit into the key of our track. See you in the next video.